first project was this barrel. This barrel was a failure as no one was able to stabilize on it and everyone kept falling. It also had nails, which ended up stabbing me and Taylor. And these are the materials we used, and these materials we ended up using later on for our new boat. The styrofoam in particular, which Khalil will explain first. For the master failure of the barrel, we started brainstorming on what we should do next. I found this pallet at my house, so we used the pallet, and I also found these kegs since they were left over after family restaurant went out of business due to COVID. So we ended cleaning these up and used them ultimately in our boat project, which ultimately proved to be a success. The white rope I got from my Teal's house, which he let us borrow, which we used to tie up the other keg. The other rope, the blue rope, which we took from Taylor's house, was used to tie up the other keg. And then the styrofoam we got from Khalil's house, both the square styrofoam, which was stiff and firm for the paddle, and the soft styrofoam, which we ended up later rolling up to use on the boat and also to use as a cushion on top of the boat. These were both taken from Khalil's house. This is me, Khalil, cleaning out everything and starting to get building the process of the boat. At first, we tried many things. We tried to put the kegs at the bottom of the pallet to see if it'd work. And from there, Taylor then came in to help out after Cleo had to go from work, and we kept trying the same process to tie it up correctly. After testing it, we found out that having the kegs at the bottom of the pallet was way super unstable. So after that, when Taylor had left, I then started brainstorming, and I thought of what if we put the kegs on the sides, because maybe you could balance it out more with the pallet instead of having the kegs on bottom, which would keep it more stable and less like bouncing up into the sides and everywhere, and ultimately make it more stable so someone can sit on it properly and paddle, hopefully. Me and Kilio ultimately went with this idea of putting the kegs on the side, but due to one of the previous testings of when the kegs were on the bottom, the rope had broken. So I started calling people to see where we could get new rope, and thankfully my deal picked up and he let us have some rope, which we ended up using, which was really helpful. Used the rope to ultimately tie down the barrels to the sides, which ended up working a lot better as they weren't fully on the bottom, as we loosened them up so they could come down to the sides a little bit, which helped a lot. So the reason why we used the kegs was because the kegs had air inside them, and air is less dense than water, so it's much more buoyant and much more like floatable in the water. So we strapped that onto a pallet, so that we use the pallet since it'd be much easier to hold a person as it can carry a lot of weight, and on top of that it'd be easy to sit down on, since trying to sit on a keg won't work as it's round and you'd like fall off. We ended up these were like the main reasons why we used the keg and the pallet, as it seemed to be provided a very useful boat. And the rope we used to tie up to the pallet, as duct tape obviously wouldn't work on metal, so we had to improvise and use rope. After putting it all together, we realized that we put it too loose, so we had to take it back out, and we also added a styrofoam on top of it, because I didn't want to get splinters on my butt or on my legs, so we used a styrofoam as like a seat almost, to protect the rider from splinters and how the wood was all rough and hard. And it was a nice cushion. It worked pretty well. It served its purpose really well. We suspected the reason why the barrels being on the bottom was as the barrels were way too buoyant for the pallet. That's the reason why it was super unstable, as pushing up against the pallet, making this pallet unstable, making the whole boat unstable. So that's when we came to the conclusion, what if we put it on the side so that it would be leveled with the pallet, and so it wouldn't be pushing up against the pallet, pushing up against anything, but it'd be on the sides. Hopefully it'd be able to float the pallet as well, which did end up floating it. After tightening up the barrel a little bit more and adding the styrofoam for a cushion and as a seat of sort, we tested it one more time and we saw that it was kind of too unstable. So after that, we retied the barrels so that it would be more to the side and completely on the side, as that seemed to be the best bet to go off from there, which thankfully ended up working for the best.
To make the paddles, we want something that was strong enough to stay together and something that can move the water good. Our first design was a small piece of wood with styrofoam on the end of it, put together with duct tape. The problem with that design was that it was too small to like even hold good, and it wasn't durable or like strong enough. We tweaked this by getting a longer piece of wood and a bigger piece, and we applied grip to it using duct tape by wrapping it around all the wood. And then we put a styrofoam piece on each side of the wood, not like the other one where we only put on one side, because the other one was too small. And this, we put it on with duct tape, the styrofoam on each side. Duct tape and a different type of tape also. This worked better because it was easier to use instead of paddling back and forth and switching each arm, because there's only styrofoam on one side of the other one, so we had to keep switching sides. And it overall looked more strong and durable compared to the smaller one, which looked less durable and more weak. Then we tested out the boat with the paddle, and it seemed to work pretty well, like a lot better than the other one. The styrofoam could have been stronger, but with the amount of paddling that we were doing, we just knew that it'd be durable enough to last competition, and it was like for a couple uses, not a long time. I like that the design made the paddle light, because it was very big, but the paddle was also very light because of the styrofoam, and it was also very long, much longer than the first one, so that's a lot better too, because it can reach both sides, like I said, without switching sides. So it was very long and very light, and overall it worked pretty good.
To the final product, I ended up rolling up some of the styrofoam, which we used as a cushion, on the sides to make it even more stable, as before I was having to keep a little bit of balance, which I'm not getting balancing, but it ended up being very successful, and it was amazing to see how I thankfully won the first heat as Batman, and it was such an enjoyable project. I enjoyed it a lot, and at the end we had a picture of us as a group, and it was awesome.